The microphone won't stay on. Right, I'll try using this microphone. I have 3 apologies for absence: Councillor Leslie Fage, Councillors North and Woodhead. Do I have any declarations of interest in any item on the agenda? No? Okay, thank you. So I do have some announcements, and I'm going to say what I've had to say at previous meetings, that we continue to remember the people of both Ukrainian and Russian origin in our community, and we keep the situation in Ukraine in our thoughts and prayers. The Deputy Mayor and I both attended Sandy Civic Service on the 27th of March. Unfortunately, the Mayor, Councillor Martin Pettit, tested positive that morning, and his Deputy, Councillor Joanna Hewitt, had to step up. Nonetheless, it was a very enjoyable occasion and another chance to catch up with colleagues, including the Police and Crime Commissioner. And today I was pleased to attend Biggleswade Rotary Club's charter lunch at the John O'Gaunt Golf Club. A Rotary charter lunch is the anniversary of the club's founding, and Biggleswade Club is now 56 years old. I was invited to say a few words in response to a toast, and amongst other things was able to thank the President, Barbara Hazel, for being a member of the Neighbourhood Plan Steering Group and to give an alert about the forthcoming referendum. And on the neighbourhood plan, yesterday we received some questions from the inspector who is examining the plan. They're technical and have been referred to Dave Chetwin. We were also told that because the inspector is unavailable for 2 weeks in May, we cannot now expect his final report until the end of May. And if the inspector so recommends, there's no indication yet of when the referendum will take place. I'm now moving on to the public open session and normal procedure. Members of the public may put questions or address council pertaining to matters listed on the agenda at this time. Does any member of the public wish to speak?
Please.
Is it an item on the agenda, Mr. Reynolds?
Yes, it's public notice on Palace Street.
Thank you. Do go ahead then.
Yes, thank you. I'm not really sure why this is happening. And my concern is now, if the change goes, traffic will be pulling down Palace Street, turning right onto a stream of moving traffic. I really can't see it being put forward for safety. You follow what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Car now, any car coming out of Palace Street has got to cross right across the road. And we've now got cars coming down.
I think it has to be put together with the fact that the junction of Station Road and Saffron Road is going to be changed to a T junction. So people will have to slow down on the bend. And I've always thought it rather funny myself that people have turned left out of Palace Street, because turning left at the moment, you're into oncoming traffic, which is expecting Saffron Road to be a one-way road. So it's not expecting any cars to come out of Saffron Road. So my own opinion, Mr. Reynolds, is that it's actually a bit safer than it would be. And it is safer because it will be a T junction rather than a bend.
Okay, and I notice there's a 20-mile-an-hour limit on there. What other traffic calming? There's cars coming down Station Road, turning more than 20 miles an hour.
Yes, they do, but hopefully this is going. The whole scheme overall will slow them down.
Does that mean there won't be parking in Station Road?
it means there's likely to be a loss of some parking, but we're not sure exactly how much at the moment because we've only just had a consultation on some of the issues to do with the interchange. I mean, the council has given its opinion, but whether we're going to prevail or not, I don't know. We'll have to see what happens.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Does anybody else wish to speak? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody online. If anybody online wants to speak, you'll have to show your electronic hand. No, okay, I'm moving on. So I'm delighted to invite Lisa King from Bedfordshire Rural Communities Charity, who is our community agent for Biggleswade. And Lisa, we look forward to your update and to what you have to say. So please do go ahead. Yes, please.
Mine stays on. Right, it's lovely to actually see you all in person. It's just over a year since I gave my last update. It's been another interesting year with COVID sort of restrictions still in place, although the easing has actually made things somewhat easier. What I'll do first is I'll just give you a quick update on headline figures. So since the period from 1st of April to 2021 to 31st of March 2022, I've had 31 new clients. Excuse me. I've signposted individuals without further one-to-one support. That's 53 people. 101 client issues resolved. That's probably actually quite a conservative estimate because I tend to think of those in terms of things like blue badges or a real concrete thing that I've done, but there's a number of my clients that I support regularly with little bits and pieces, and I don't always sort of count those as an outcome, I suppose. So that's probably higher than it is. 64 client visits, and that's face-to-face visits now, which is absolutely wonderful. Total client contacts, 266. Blue badges, I've processed, or I've had 10. I've got 4 in the system that I've just had confirmation today that they've been approved. We had a real glut of those in February. Attendance allowance, I've had 1 successful attendance allowance application, and that was for the higher rate, which made a heck of a difference for the lady. And I've currently got 3, 1 that's gone in today, and I've got another 3 lined up to do over the coming weeks. So again, there's been a big upturn in the attendance allowance. I also did a PIP review, which is something I've never done, and I was quite nervous about doing because I realised what an enormous difference it would make if I didn't get it right. Fortunately, the DWP were incredibly helpful because I didn't have the original application, and they furnished me with that, and I was then able to put in a good review. And that resulted in increased PIP payment for the gentleman and also blue badge entitlement and free car tax. So that was a real win for that. So that was very, very gratifying, and he was, well, blown away, frankly. So that's sort of the headline figures. So the breadth of the role, I mean, basically, most of the time I'm acting as an advocate for our vulnerable residents and people who have struggled to get positive health outcomes from their GP surgery. That has cropped up time and time again, and is very frustrating because there's very little that I can do as a community agent to actually sort of get a foot over the door and rattle cages. But there has been a few successes with that. I've been identifying clients who might benefit from contact with Bedfordshire Rural Communities Charities Community Wellbeing Champions. So they offer, I'm trying to think how to describe social prescribing. So I do a lot of the really sort of practical stuff like attendance allowance, bits and pieces like that. They take things further in actually increasing people's health and well-being. So, you know, I've put several people in touch with them. I've also been booking vaccination appointments and arranging transport for people, which has been incredibly useful for some of our residents that have found it difficult. And also reading and responding to mail for clients. So, because we've got a number of people who either have learning difficulties that make it difficult for them to do so, or with some of our elderly clients, you know, they get an official letter through and they panic. And all they want is somebody to sort of come out, have a look and say, that's fine, you don't need to do anything. And they can just go, and, you know, I think just having somebody that they can do that makes a big difference. I've been carrying out benefit checks for people, signposting to help where appropriate, because I'm not a benefits expert, but I can put people in touch with people who are. Also applying for warm home discounts. And I mean, that is, I think, going to be a really big thing come October this year. I've also acquired a free Zimmer frame for a client. In my other role as a community transport driver, I'd been in touch with this lady for various other bits and pieces, and I knew she was having problems getting something from occupational therapy because the waiting lists were just massive. And I took one of our transport clients to the MS Therapy Centre in Bedford, and outside was a Zimmer frame with free to good home on it. So stuck my head around the door and said, I've got somebody who could use this, can I have it? And I went, yeah. So then sort of rang her up, took it round, and she's now using it and very happy. So, you know, it's little wins like that that are really satisfying. Also, with the easing of lockdown restrictions, I've been finding mobile hairdressers for people, for clients that are housebound. There was another lady who I went round to do a blue badge for her, and she said, I don't suppose while you're here you could sort my telly out, could you? And she was having problems with her smart TV, and I'm a bit of a geek and do these things. So I set up all her channels for her on her smart TV. So, and also finding dog walkers and groomers for a household, a housebound client for her little elderly dog. So, you know, the breadth of the role is just incredible, from, you know, as I say, very, very serious things like attendance allowance and PIP, to the weirdest things. You know, you pick up the phone, you never quite know what it's going to be, and it, you know, it's magic. So moving on, I sort of alluded earlier to being able to do face-to-face meetings again, and that has been absolutely wonderful to actually get out and see clients, go round, sit down, have a chat, and you find you get so much more out of them. We can do it over the phone, but it's not the same as actually seeing somebody and spotting things and saying, do you need help with that? You know, and so that's been wonderful. So I found that very rewarding. And I think the clients have found it very rewarding too. One of the things that has been a bit of a surprise is the number of calls that I get from neighbouring villages and from Sandy. Now, obviously, I can't respond to them. When I have had capacity, I have helped with small things. But to me, it just really shows that there is such a need for this role in other areas. You know, and I know funding is, you know, a problem everywhere. And I'm only doing 14 hours a week, and I can't cover everything that, you know, there are people that are falling through the gaps. And it really concerns me that there are people in sort of Langford, Moggahanger, Sandy, who need help, and they just can't get it. And, you know, we direct them to citizens advice or age concern, but they haven't got the capacity either. And I just feel this is such an important role for relatively little money, and having huge benefits. And, you know, I would just love to see Biggleswade trying to persuade other areas of the value of this. So that, yeah, I mean, really to round up, as I say, it's been a challenging year. It's been a much better year than previously. It's been fantastic meeting people. I've become an expert Googler. So, you know, if you ever need anything finding, just ask, you know, because my Google mojo is strong. And really, I'd just like to round up by thank you so much for the opportunity to do this. It's humbling. It's very satisfying. You know, I've posted off an attendance allowance form for a gentleman today, and you know, just helping them through that process. And I don't like to use the word gratitude, but the appreciation from them of what goes into doing something like that, and the fact that I've done something that I find relatively easy to do. And it's hopefully, if it's successful, it's going to make a real difference to them. So, yeah, it's a great job. So thank you.
Well, thank you for what you do. Do colleagues have any questions of Lisa? Councillor Ramsey?
Hello, thank you for coming this evening. I was just interested to know whether there's a sort of a split in the age groups at all. I would just say, what is it, 80% people that are retired or 20% people? I'm thinking of younger people that are isolated at home with families and children. And how often do you get called out to those sort of people?
Rarely. The majority are elderly people. I have had a couple of younger people, and I've tended to find that they're the ones that it's best to refer to the community wellbeing champions, because there's often things that they can do, certainly with regard to isolation. One of the big problems I find with the elderly clients in isolation is an unwillingness to go out, and it's very difficult to address that. But I would say that the majority are probably 70 plus.
Yeah. Are there any other questions? Yes, please, Councillor Brown.
Just what's your title as such?
Biggleswade Community Agent.
The reason I'm asking that is even in our documentation, it's lacking the word Biggleswade.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that's why you're getting calls from Sandy and other places.
I think a lot of the calls come via occupational health, bizarrely enough. There's a particular lady involved with either social services or the OT who refers anybody that's got any attendance allowance issues or financial issues to me, and it's like, I can't help, I'm really sorry. What I have done, I've actually prepared an email now with sort of my top tips for attendance allowance and a couple of examples of how, you know, key phrases and how to lay things out, and you know, all this kind of stuff. And if somebody does get in touch with me with that, I'll send them that email so they've at least got something. You know, and I'll often do that with other little bits and pieces. You know, I can't help you, but here's some links, go and look at that. And so I do what I can.
Okay. Any further questions? I don't think so. Well, thank you very much, Lisa, for coming. It is good that you've been able to come along and talk to us, as you say, face to face for the first time. So thank you for what you do. And I'm sure that the council will want to continue supporting that work. It's so important in the community.
Thank you for doing it.
And maybe we could talk to one or two of our neighbouring councils and suggest they might like to find a Lisa.
Hopefully so.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'm moving on to members' questions. Do I have any members' questions? No? Okay. Minutes of meetings. So I'm going to the minutes of our meeting on the 22nd of March. And this is for accuracy to start with. It's page 7 in the pack. So page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Page 11. Page 12. Councillor Foster.
11, halfway down. Hitchmead is one word, not two.
Yes, thank you. I think one of these days we'll cotton on to that. Anything else on page 11? Page 12. Page 13. Councillor Foster.
I just wanted to make reference to the paragraph in relation to the ward councillor grant. I'm not sure the wording is exactly correct in that Councillor Whitaker said that ward councillor.
Councillor Foster, can you move the microphone a
I
bit
beg your pardon,
closer?
sorry, that's me mumbling a little.
Yeah.
Councillor Whitaker said up to £2,000 to adopt a street. I think that there was some issue around that. So Councillor Whitaker was allocated her grant, and there was an option, but the fact that we had a problem administering it, and because Susanna did not have the relevant information, I think that was what the problem was. I think we've managed to resolve that, and I'm really pleased that we've actually been able to get through it. But I think the wording specifies that up to £2,000. It's not completely accurate. I think Councillor Whitaker had £950, I think is what it was, but maybe it's worth just referencing the minutes just to make sure that the webcast to make sure that the wording is correct. I'm not absolutely sure that it is.
So you think it should be up to 950?
I believe so, but that I'm not sure that's what was actually documented by £1,000. I think that Councillor Whitaker had £999 actually, wasn't it?
So it should be up to £1,000. We're agreeing on that, are we? Yes, okay. So we can make that change. So
and just as on, sorry, we're going to follow on after that. So I'll leave.
yeah, go on then.
It's just, the next steps, and so there's an outcome from it. So
So
we'll leave
we'll
it.
leave that for a minute for matters arising. Okay, so with those two changes, Hitchmead as one word and up to 1,000 instead of 2,000. May I sign them as the correct?
Move it.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. So we then have the minutes of the Finance and General Purposes Committee. Does Councillor Puddinger wish to say anything, please?
Nothing really to add to the minutes. I think we had some very fruitful discussions, particularly around the cost reduction and efficiency review, and there's a number of things that we're planning to bring forward to the next meeting, which means that we should see a even more productive meeting, I would hope, on the 21st of June.
Thank you. So is Council happy to note these minutes?
Note them.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm now on matters arising, and so I'm back to page 7 of the minutes of our last meeting. I don't think there'll be any matters arising there. So page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, page 12, and page 13. Councillor
Perhaps we could
Foster.
do this on this item then. So the item in relation to the ward councillor grants for Adopt a Street. Could we have an update, please?
Would you like to come forward to a microphone, please, Mrs. Solomon? So who is speaking on this?
It's me.
Yes, thank you.
So we have procured a number of kits that includes litter pickers, bag hoops, and gloves and high-vis vests from this grant. We spent the full amount of money, and it's all arrived this week.
That's good to know. So, and could I just, as a follow-up, so where is the equipment being located? Is it the town council keeping it, or is that going elsewhere?
It's not been decided yet, as far as I'm aware.
Yes, Mr Hosseini.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just to add to that, actually, I think, I mean, there's a whole range of equipment now, essentially, legacy equipment that we already have as part of BTC. There's the equipment, as Isaac's just set out here, that's derived from CBC as well. And we're holding the existing equipment in our depot. The new equipment, which has just arrived, my understanding is that Susanna has asked her to take that on off-site, if you like, and administer that herself with the appropriate security markings, which is what's going to be happening going forward.
Okay.
Excellent. So can I just follow up? I mean, I'm really pleased that we've, I know there's some challenge on how this was administered, and aside from the fact it's a ward councillor grant, and I think it's important that we were seen to support this particular initiative, and we've been able to do so with some challenge around the financials that I appreciate, but certainly from my point of view, appreciate the fact that we've been able to do it with not too much difficulty in some respects. So maybe that's a lesson for us for any future things. If there's some way that we can work it, let's think what the solution is rather than sort of the opposite in a way.
Thank you. Councillor Page.
Just to add to that, and sounding a little like a broken record, but this is a really good thing and requires some participation from members of our community. So I think we as a council should think about what role we can play in publicising this initiative, explaining that it's the work that our staff are doing, and encouraging people to come forward.
Thank you. Mr Tarrant.
Just to say, I'll be doing an update later in regard to communication resources, which will help us do that.
Okay. Anything else on the minutes? Okay, I'm moving on. So items for consideration. We're now moving on to the arrangements for the Queen's Jubilee events. So we have a report in front of us from Mr Lord and Mr Hosseini. Do you wish to add anything to your report before I open it up to councillors? Mr Lord, please.
Thank you. So as per Karim's update at last full council, officers are continuing to work on the final details of the event on Thursday the 2nd of June and Sunday the 5th. Since submitting this report for the agenda, the marketing strategy has changed and we aren't going ahead with the 9,000 leaflets that the report mentions. Further progress has also been made in designs for the promotional material. And once we've finalised this, it will proceed to promote it through social media platforms, the Biggleswade Bulletin and the Town Council website, in line with the recommendation from members at last council. All procurement processes are at their final stages, so we have procured the staging, PA and lighting systems, and then we've had 3 quotes each for bunting and cherry pickers that are to be chosen shortly. Acts are going to be provided by, some acts are going to be provided by the vendor that's been chosen for the staging. And then we've also had confirmation from Biggleswade Choral Society and Sea Cadets for a bugler. I've also been personally approaching town centre businesses, and we've had 5 that have committed so far out of the 23 that I've approached.
Thank you. Did you wish to say anything?
Very briefly. So firstly, thank you to officers who have been helping to organise this. Councillors Russell, Grant Fage and myself have also been meeting weekly with officers to progress this. I think plans are going well. It's worth mentioning that in terms of the marketing strategy, we determined that using the bulletin would represent better value for money than a direct mail shot. We already have the retained advertising space. So the plan is, with some artwork that's now been prepared, to submit that I believe on the 14th of April for the May run of the bulletin, because the June bulletin will be too slow. So hopefully everyone's received the April bulletin in the last week. I certainly did, and a straw poll most members have. So that standing advert we have on page 2 will be placed to attract the public to come and attend these events. Other than that, I just propose that we continue with plans for the event, which I think are going well. Thank you.
Okay, I've got several people indicating. Councillor Bond first. Sorry, can you pull
We
your mic?
understand, we're told just now that the deadline for the bulletin is the 14th. Are we actually ready to have a submission to the bulletin in time?
Yes, just about.
Yeah, Councillor Fage has been doing a lot of work on that, and we are nearly there, I think. Councillor Pullinger.
Thank you. Just for the observations, and I think it's a great piece of work that has been done here. Just a couple of questions or observations, really. First one in relation to street parties. I think it's fantastic and exactly what we should be doing, supporting residents with the street closure applications. I guess the only comment I would make is there any reason to necessarily restrict that to 4 if there were 6 that were in suitable locations and was supported by their neighbourhood? Then I think we ought to support more than 4. My second comment was in relation to the bunting. I absolutely think it's a great idea to have the bunting. My only thought was, has any impact assessment been done in relation to any impact that might have on CCTV coverage in relation to having the bunting in place? We know obviously we've had issues with banners that CBC have put up in the past. So I think that would be something worth considering. And there was a third point, but I've forgotten it, so it probably wasn't very important.
Would you like to answer about the CCTV, please? Yes, Mr. Lord.
I have walked the square and drawn a diagram of where the bunting will go, and it shouldn't have any issue with CCTV.
Thank you for that. Now, other people were indicating. Councillor Strawn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's all very good progress, but I hope we'll be doing a little bit more on the publicity side, making sure our website is fully up to date, and encouraging people to engage with the council. I think Councillor Pullinger's comment about 4 street parties or so out of the number of streets we've got in the town is a very few, quite frankly. And the other thing is, I hope that we will be issuing press releases. If nothing else, we may not wish to actually put in adverts, but I think we should be doing regular press releases so that it's getting out to the community, not just in our adverts, but generally so that the press can pick up on this. And we just need to publicise it so people know what's going to be happening, rather than at the moment everyone wondering what is happening, if anything.
I think you're quite right, but I do know that you can't publicise anything until you've got things together, and officers and councillors, Knight and Fage in particular, have just finished pulling things together enough to be able to give a programme to members of the public, because that's what people need, a programme. Councillor Pullinger.
I remembered my third point. At the last Christmas event, we closed Station Road for public safety, and I think that was very successful. Obviously, we don't know how many people we will expect for these events, but are we considering a similar closure for the one or both of these events?
Sorry, Mr. Hosseini.
Thank you. In response to Councillor Pullinger's questions, yes, we are considering closing Station Road for the event as part of our safety advisory group risk assessment. And going back to the street parties point, the 4 was really, sort of an indicative number. Essentially, we have been kind of seeking, kind of inviting, if you like, people to come and apply for work, raise their interest for street parties, and so far we've had a handful of inquiries come in. So we'd encourage actually more to come through, so we can assist them with arranging their street parties.
Thank you. Anything else?
Just as a follow-up to that, then, so if we get to, I don't know, let's say the middle of May, and you have more interest, what restrictions, what's the cut-off point for being able to have a formal road closure? I suspect that there may well be other parties that might not require road closures, but from a point of view of residents wanting to have a road officially closed, what would be the cut-off, please?
Yes, please.
Thank you. My understanding is clear we're reaching that point quite quickly, and as well with the Easter break coming soon, we're going to be reaching that point. So I understand I think it's at least 4 weeks to get that at least sorted out beforehand. So we're looking at early May.
Okay, I guess as a follow-up to that, then it's clear that if there are what other methods are that, what communication methods might we deploy, whether it's social media or whether it's the town or the website, whatever, to actually just encourage that? Because what tends to happen, people go, oh yeah, I'll get that sorted out, and then it's too late. And I think it's almost, we need to have something in place. Is it on the website? If it is, I haven't seen it personally, but.
Okay, so we need to do something on social media just to get the word out there. It was Councillor Strawn, then Councillor Fage.
Thank you very much. Following on Councillor Foster's comments, I think it's essential that we actually have the date out there, and so people know when they've got the time limit. So it's no good saying it's coming up closely. It has got to be a date so that people will get apply in time.
That's fine. Councillor Fage.
Yeah, just on this, I think we do need to be careful though, because road closures are not the remit of this council. And so whilst we may signpost people in the relevant direction, it's not for, our staff time is dedicated towards these two events, one on the Thursday evening and one on Sunday day, and making them a success. That shouldn't come at the expense of helping people close the roads if it's going to be very labour intensive, which it could be for our staff. A signpost here and there is fine, but much beyond that, I don't think it's the responsibility of us particularly.
No, but I think trying to get it out there that people need to act by a certain time if they want a road closure, and giving some indication of who they need to get in contact with would be useful. Okay, anything else on the Jubilee? Councillor Knight?
Only to mention that I do have the draft artwork on my laptop for the advert, so if anyone would like to see that later, then feel free to come and have a look at my laptop, and I'd be happy to share that.
Okay. So I'm going to move on. And the next item on the agenda is the Sustainable Transport Corridor. So I think Councillor Fage, yes.
Yeah. So firstly, thank you, and I think it's good that we've got this on the agenda, but it's a little regrettable, that we've had to, dare I say, put it sort of on here ourselves rather than being formally consulted on some of the questions which were being asked. That's not a criticism, because we know that it's in the early stages. But that said, I think the role of this council needs to be very clear in helping to, how shall I put it, shape what this sustainable transport corridor looks like. At the moment, I think we're probably struggling to get our voice across in that way, and that's because A, partly it's the early stages, but B, there hasn't really been that consultation just yet. So look, I think we need to push for a meeting with those who are responsible for this at Central Bedfordshire Council. I don't like the thought of any councillor or any council potentially not being as consulted as thoroughly as they could be on something which is so important and potentially so expensive. We don't know the budget just yet. So I think we need to press ahead for a private meeting on this to thrash out some of the detail, to see what direction they're going in, and then to try to shape what this sustainable transport corridor, or maybe transport loop, who knows, could look like. Failure to do so, worries me with some of the highways impacts that could come, loss of parking potentially, or changes to residential streets, which wouldn't sit comfortably with our residents. So I'd like to propose that, please.
Do I have a seconder for that, please? Two. Okay, Councillor Pullinger, you wanted to come in?
Thank you. Yeah, I fully endorse what Councillor Fage has said, and although in the report from Ms Gray, where it says that attendees on the Friday included a number of ex-members of the council. It did also include one current member of the council, because I was actually there. And it was very interesting presentations and things that they gave, but one of the things that actually concerned me was that there was a very clear impression given from them and from all the posters that were being displayed that Biggleswade Town Council are already a partner in this. Every single poster had our logo on it, and they referred to having discussed things with the neighbourhood plan group and things like that. I don't know, as not being part of that group, what level of conversations have been had. Was it in relation to the garden communities and things like that, is where these conversations have apparently taken place. As I say, I'm not criticising anyone from this council. I was just concerned that the impression is being given by them that we're already a partner, when I certainly nothing has come to council that would indicate that we are. So I think to actually be able for them to continue to publicise this with our logo on it, we definitely need to be meeting with them and fully understanding it and deciding actually, are we on board to be seen as a partner in this or not? And I think there is, so we need to have that meeting.
Well, I want to say straight away as chairman of the steering group that this has not been discussed in detail with them or with anybody else at the steering group. The talk at the town council had started from the report that we had done, place shaping, David, whose name I've lost, but when he did, sorry, Edwards, that's right, when David Edwards did his report, he identified east-west connectivity as one of the big issues for the town. And the council has been aware of that ever since we received David Edwards' report. And obviously, we wouldn't have done anything in the neighbourhood plan to put that in danger. But actually, I think what's being said is quite right, because the options that have been put forward, none of them are ideal. One or two of them are really quite poor. And we were told very clearly when we were given a presentation at the recent council meeting that there would only be one corridor. Well, there are responses that are reported here that there should be two. And that's the first thing that this council said. We've pointed out a lot of issues. We have no idea whether they're being taken on board. So I think the proposal that's been put forward is quite right. Sorry, Councillor Ramsey.
I fully support the proposal that we have a meeting. I would like to confirm that it ought to be a meeting here with personal people, with people attending, and not done over Zoom because the acoustics are very variable. But it seems to me that there's so many issues to sort out that it needs to be a long meeting if necessary, but and to take place in this town hall with the officers concerned, because to say that we're partners is totally wrong, and to say that other things have been discussed and agreed is also totally wrong. And we really do need to get a personal meeting together to make it quite clear where we all stand on this. And I'm not happy with it just being a Zoom meeting of a couple of officers coming in on a meeting. It should be a special meeting and we should all be there to attend it. Thank you.
I think that's quite right. And we obviously as a council want to be involved in trying to develop better east-west connectivity. And I don't think we want to be done to by consultants who have come in who don't really know the town. And that's the issue really, isn't it? So does anybody else wish to say anything? So the proposal is that there are an awful lot of issues. Sorry. Go on then, Mr. Hussain.
Thanks, Madam. Just to provide an update, we have invited the team, including CBC team, to come to a meeting, and I haven't received a response yet, but I can follow that up tomorrow. That's all. That's all I want to say.
When you say a meeting, do you mean a council meeting or?
Well, it was.
We don't need another council.
No,
we need an informal meeting where we can all discuss the issues.
It was a briefing meeting, type meeting. Yeah.
Okay.
On the options.
Thank you. So sorry.
Excuse me. Just as a follow-up then, so can I? What's the next steps then? Because clearly there's some comments on how are you going to go on to that in terms of the response that we are going to make in relation to the comments in the agenda here. Where are we going with it? Is that being sent? Is it not being sent?
Well, I think the response, if I'm reading Councillor Fage's proposal right, is that there are too many issues to try and put down on paper. We've already indicated at previous council to them what some of the issues are, where some of the difficulties are. There are too many issues to try and do a formal response. We need to be round the table and try and thrash things out.
But just as a follow-up, Dan, just to be clear then, if we arrange that, that's fine. But if we don't or are not able to meet that, or for whatever reason, I just want to make sure that there is a formal response from the council that is put forward. Albeit I understand that we're not going to be able to deal with all of the issues, but there are clearly some issues that we've highlighted here on top of more detailed conversations. If we don't send anything before that for a deadline, it doesn't necessarily reflect well on the council, would be my concern.
Well, we've already sent in the comments from the last council meeting. Councillor Knight.
Thank you. I was going to say, well, I think part of that response should be we don't feel we've been adequately consulted at this point. So I know we received a somewhat scrappy invitation on the 22nd of March for workshops that were occurring on the 25th in the day when a significant number of members have full-time jobs, and on the 26th. So we didn't get much notice. So I would also ask that this, could it possibly be on a Tuesday evening when we tend to keep that evening free? I think the 3rd of May, for example, is a blank Tuesday evening, so that may be the most convenient time for us, maybe not for Tibbalds. And can we please make sure we get reasonable notice for the next workshop? Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Strawn.
2 points of clarification. We resolved on the 22nd of March to write to Central Bedfordshire Council. Could it please be confirmed that letter actually has gone? And a second point for confirmation is I note that the Central Beds have been invited to meet at the council offices. Is that just with officers or is it with council members as a whole?
Mr Hosseini.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. In response to Councillor Strawn's both 2 questions, that's the letter which I was referring to earlier in my remarks. Yes, did go out several days ago. We're awaiting a response from that, and actually that was requesting a briefing meeting essentially with officers and 4 members essentially. Yeah.
Yes, it's not quite a briefing meeting, is it? It's trying to jointly find the right way forward. This is what I think the council's mood is, that we need to do this jointly, not be told what's happening by other people in our town. Okay, so I think what we're saying is that the response to this is that there are too many issues to try and go through. We've already highlighted some of the real problems. There wasn't sufficient notification of the consultation events that they held, that they held, and that we are asking for a meeting to jointly move this forward. Is that okay, Councillor Page? So all those in favour of that proposal, please. That's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, this meeting, this alleged briefing meeting, is that just with officers or is that going to be with the consultants that also helped out?
I think you said it's with the members, isn't it? Yes. And so the consultants are effectively the officers for Central Beds who have been appointed by Central Beds to do this work.
All right, thank you.
With money supplied by the government. Okay, moving on. So item C is the Palace Street band turn. Comments, please, colleagues. Councillor Pullinger and then Councillor Fage and then Councillor Strawn.
So this is obviously as a consequence and a consequential requirement of the changes to the junction of Station Road and Saffron Road as a result of the transport interchange. I think it's there is no way with the removal of the essential creation of the T junction and the continuation of Station Road down to past the interchange, that Palace Street is able to connect onto Station Road in that new format, and it will be connecting onto what will now be a one-way street. So I think it's really quite clear that this is the right thing to do. I understand that residents who currently use that road, who are used to turning left out of there to go down Station Road and will have to now go down Saffron Road, will have a change to their what they're able to do, but I don't see that there'll be any other option. So I think we note this really. I don't think we need to actively respond.
Well, they are consulting. Surely we should say yay or nay.
Or in that case, that yeah, we support the proposal if they are asking for a response.
Do I have a seconder? Yeah, thank you. It was Councillor Fage and Councillor Strawn.
No, I was just going to say I think we should support it.
Councillor Strawn.
Yes, I do have some concerns. I note that we're saying that it's a T junction, but it's a kind of reverse T junction in the sense that nobody's actually going to be coming out of Saffron Road. My particular concern is that traffic coming from the town centre will know that it's a right turn. They may won't be a great deal of traffic coming the opposite way necessarily, and they will swing shortly into Saffron Road, quite close to the wall. And I do not believe that this plan shows a sufficient vision display to the left. I can see that they're just coming cut across, and the danger is that cars coming out of Palace Street will have their nose taken off. I think it could be quite dangerous as that plan is actually drawn. So whilst I can understand the principle, I'm not objecting to the principle. On the basis of this plan, I don't actually think that turn is quite right. And I know there's issues over buses and such like, but I'm just concerned that the lack of visibility to the left is a danger. And in that respect, I can't support it in that respect as it stands if I've interpreted the plan correctly. The principle, yes, but I do think there is an issue with regard to turning out of Paris Street.
Thank you. Councillor Pullinger and then Councillor Bond.
So I think from my viewing of it is that the junction will move some way further out from where it is now, and there will be visibility from the giveaway line back along Station Road beyond the wall. So I don't believe that there's a visibility issue from what's drawn on the plan the way I'm seeing it. But
if I may come back to a specific answer to that, if that's the case and there's sufficient visibility, I'm not objecting. My concern is that the plan isn't clear about the visibility. And I think if we can just have that caveat put to it, I hope that would be acceptable.
Councillor Bond.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding this, but I think all we're being asked to do is about to stop the left turn out of Palace Street. Any road layout and so on is not part of this this request. I think that's a single, there might be a drawing, but there's actually all that the public notice is talking about is stopping the left turn, unless of course colleagues agree with me.
Okay, so the proposal is that we support this proposal from Central Bedfordshire to make traffic from Palace Street turn right instead of left. So all those in favour, please. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. So onto the accounts.
yeah. I propose we accept the 4 reports as detailed in the agenda.
Are there any questions on the accounts that are in front of council? No? So all those in favour of their adoption, please. I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much. So then we're on to planning applications, and the first one is 19A High Street kitchen extract system. I didn't see who was first. Councillor Knight for a change.
In terms, thank you. Reading the impact assessments and so on, the pollution officer is not satisfied with the evidence that's been provided around noise impact, odour impact, and therefore objects to this application. I propose we continue to strongly object on the grounds of noise and odour impact to the immediate residential properties. It's really an unsuitable location for a commercial kitchen and takeaway food, and that would represent a hazard and obstruction on the public highway.
Do I have a seconder for that? Yes, thank you. Councillor Pullinger and then Councillor Fage.
I was just going to say we have already objected to this, and this is an amendment, and our objections are broadly the same. I think we should write to reiterate them as Councillor Knight has just suggested, and again reiterate the fact that we're concerned that this application has been submitted without any submission of a change of use application at this point.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fage.
Something that maybe we could just add, if Councillor Knight is happy with this. I'm mindful of how consistent we are over certain planning applications, and that we have seen another application in the town centre, in the old town hall, which the pollution officer has objected to, but we fundamentally disagreed with him or her, and part of that was down to noise. So in light of consistency, I think the odour stuff holds up to scrutiny, but particularly in light of the noise stuff, perhaps we could just say, because this specific unit is literally attached to a residential dwelling, that's why we see a difference in this case. Maybe there's a better way of wording it than that, but yeah, it's at the immediate proximity of an adjoining property, residential property.
Thank you.
Maybe we could mention he could get on with the old town hall as well while he's at it.
Councillor Pullinger.
I think to that, we could also mention there's the users of a takeaway themselves are likely to make more noise than the users of a travel agent. And therefore there's potential for noise to be generated by the users, not just by the fan and the equipment inside the building.
Thank you. So all those in favour of objecting on the grounds we've been talking about? Okay, thank you. That's unanimous again. 12 Collins Crescent, single storey rear extension. Any comments, please? Subject to neighbours, are we all happy? Thank you. The Red Lion. We have a planning application and also listed building consent. Councillor Knight.
Thank you. I have quite a lot to say on this one, I'm afraid. So I found this difficult and I was initially torn. I want the building to be used. I shared a post on Facebook and I had something like 150 comments, and it was a real mix. Some people really strongly objected because they would like to see it retained for commercial use. Quite a lot of people just want to see the building used, and it's essentially derelict. So I've thought about it a lot, and I've come to the view that I do object to this application. I think we can only consider the application before us, but I'm mindful that the goal of this application is primarily to establish the change of use, and it's highly unlikely this will be the final application. I would fully expect to see another application coming at some point, maybe a more ambitious scheme which might take into consideration the car park. So the site is within the town centre boundary. It's inside the conservation area. It's outside the primary retail shopping area. I think it's interesting to think about the number of commercial buildings in the town that are currently vacant. And there aren't very many, which would suggest there's reasonable demand in the town for commercial buildings. So, for example, the former town hall is currently vacant. As Councillor Fage mentioned, we have seen an application for that. There is a tenant interested in taking that on and seeking planning permission for commercial use, and this town council has indicated it supports that. The new inn was recently marketed by the same vendor that sold this site, and that was purchased very quickly. And I understand informally that the purchaser of that is planning to reopen that as a bar or public house, and therefore that would indicate, again, good commercial support. And of course, the former owner of this site, UKR, did share with us some ambitious plans to invest in that site as a commercial site, which again, to my mind, would evidence that there is potential demand and potential value and commercial ways to use that site. A local resident has also shared some Central Bed's pre-planning advice they received on another site that I think is very similar. This was a year or so ago, but they were working with the owners of the Whistle and Flute, also inside the town centre, within the conservation area, but outside the primary shopping area, so exactly the same status. And the conclusion of that pre-planning advice was that Central Bed said they would not support conversion to residential. They were not convinced with the evidence that was provided. So that, to my mind, seems to establish some precedent that a very similar location is not suitable and should not be converted. And I think consistency in planning is also important. I'm also concerned that the plans propose to demolish part of a listed site, as I understand it, or part of a listed building, so I think that needs to be considered. Sorry, I said this was long. I looked at the local plan to see which policies are relevant to this site. So policy EMP2, which is in relation to change of use to non-employment generating sites, says support will only be considered where there is no reasonable or viable prospect of the site delivering an employment generating use. I think based on the other comments I've made, I think there is a reasonable, viable prospect that it could be used for employment generating use. So I don't think that has been demonstrated, and I think that's fair grounds to object. Secondly, policy R1, ensuring town centre vitality. The proposed use, as described by that policy, which I won't read verbatim, would not positively support the vitality of the town centre, and therefore that is also not grounds to object, but certainly grounds for not supporting the application. So in brief summary, I don't think it has been demonstrated that the site is not viable for commercial use. And policy EMP2 would therefore suggest that Central Beds wouldn't support it, and I don't think we should support it either. So that's my proposal.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Definitely.
Lots of seconders. Okay, thank you. Who else would like to speak? Councillor Page?
If I might just say on this, so firstly, thank you to Councillor Knight for his extensive sort of research into the local plan and trying to tie this back to planning policy. Just as a broader point as a council, I think, you know, an important message needs to be sent here that it's not acceptable just to buy commercial real estate in Biggleswade town centre, sit on it, let it fall into ruin, and then say, oh no, it's not viable to be commercial anymore, I need to turn it into a house. That doesn't sit comfortably with me. I don't want that happening to other buildings. I don't want it happening to this building. So for those who wish to act in that way, so be it. But I hope that Central Bedfordshire Council are smart enough to see through that. I'm sure they will be given the evidence that's provided in Councillor Knight's proposal.
Yeah. There was a lot of discussion about that particular point about leaving a building and then saying, well, there's no buyers for it. And there was a clause, and I can't remember the exact clause now, but it was discussed at the examination in public of the local plan. And there was big discussion about how long the building had to be marketed before it could have the change of use. And the inspectors were recommending 12 months. And I think at the moment, Central Beds only have 6 months, but we'll see. I mean, from the latest marketing, I don't think it's 6 months yet. Sorry, Councillor Alban.
Just wanted to raise, kind of supporting what Councillor Knight has proposed. The pollution officer's report was concerned about noise affecting residents in if this was to be converted to a residential dwelling. So, because in the area you've got Stratton House Hotel immediately opposite, and that, yeah, there can be noise generated from that. So there was concerns from the officers about the impact of noise that's there anyway on residents.
Thank you for that. And isn't there a bit of an issue about access from the walk at that point?
Yes, I recollect that there was an issue over the access, because if we look at what was being proposed, they were going to alter the access in from the bulk rather than from London Road, if I recollect it correctly. But I think Councillor Knight's done an excellent exposition on reasons why it's unsuitable.
Yeah, and obviously the access from the bulk is that they would come forward with something else for the car park with access from London Road. Sorry, Councillor Fage, and then
One very last point. Maybe we could consider, hopefully, one of our Central Beds councillors calling this in, actually, because we don't, you know, we pick our fights selectively as a town council, and we very rarely, you know, we see a huge number of planning applications in this town, but seldom do we feel as strong as we do about something like this. So maybe that's something for them to ponder over.
Okay, thank you. So, Councillor Bond, sorry.
I don't normally make a comment. I'd like to clarify a little bit more what Councillor Fage is asking for. I think he should only ask for the local ward council to call in if officers are minded to approve it. So basically, it doesn't get so the call in is only activated if officers are minded to actually approve the application.
And we don't know that yet.
Well, you won't know, but if you do that, you cover all your bases. It means that otherwise, what happens? It goes to DMC. Because it's called in, but if the officers are going to actually reject it, it doesn't go to DMC, it's just rejected. So the wording is always, you're calling it in if officers are minded to approve it.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. So I'm not going to try and repeat everything that Councillor Knight said, but Can I have a show of hands who's in favour of objecting on all those grounds? Oh, any against? Okay, thank you. Well, that's overwhelming support to object to that for all those reasons given, and I think Councillor Knight, you might need to, yeah. So, Plant and Logistics, Unit N, Stratton Business Park, erection of a workshop. Any comments? No?
Move it.
Okay. 1 Delius Road, loft conversion. Any comments? Subject to neighbours? Yeah, okay. 23 Mead End, front extension and alterations to covered walkway. Any comments? No, subject to neighbours. Brook Cottage, Langford Road, timber carport. Subject to neighbours. Okay. 191 Mead End, replace front porch, garage conversion, side extension and loft conversion. A lot of work. Any comments? Okay, subject to neighbours again. 78 Hitchins Street, variation of condition. Previously on the council agenda and we didn't object. I'm not sure what this planning condition was. Has anybody been able to establish that? Councillor Bond?
Just for clarity, I decided to look into it because condition 3, all it talks about is the building will be built with request to in respect to plans 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. But if you actually look at it in detail, what's actually happening is they've asked to change the pitch of the garage from 25 degrees to 35 degrees, which will effectively raise the ridge height by 615 millimeters. And the reason they're doing that is to add insulation and to propose to use solar panels. That's what I can understand looking at the planning application. That's what's actually being asked for. Obviously, unfortunately, as you said, it's not very clear from what's come forward, but that's all they're asking for.
So it's really subject to neighbours given the extra roof height.
I'm going to propose no objection subject to neighbours.
Okay, thank you. And then we have some tree work, Hitchins Street. Any comments or do we note it?
Note it.
Note it. Thank you. And Beaumont Park, tree work. Any comments?
Noted.
No, noted. Thank you. We've had notification of a planning appeal for Warren Villas Quarry, which I think is in Sandy Parish, but very adjacent to the north end of the common. Does anybody have any comments on this? No? So we note this as well. We're happy to note it. Thank you. And then we have a report on planning outcomes, which is a new look report, taking out all the ones that we approved or didn't object to and just concentrating on the ones that were more contentious. Are there any comments? No? Are we happy to note this report? Thank you. Items for information. Some nice thank you letters. I think just to note, are we happy with that?
Yeah.
And then we've already been talking about the neighbourhood plan, so we'll see, we've moved on a bit. And at least we are in the examination now, so note that, I think. Great big spring cleaning week. So I think Mr. Lord is supposed to be updating us on this, please.
Thank you. So officers are continuing to support and collaborate with the Adopt a Street initiative. I'm in regular contact with the representative. Litter pickers and bag hoops were sourced from CBC and they were provided for the Riverside Clean that happened on Sunday the 10th of April. And this is in addition to the additional number of kits that we've also sourced from this ward grant. I've also spoken with a representative from Adopter Street, and in collaboration with Plastic Free Biggleswade, we'll shortly be penciling in some one-off dates that will happen throughout the next couple of months that officers will support with, and this will include litter picks, engagement events and such. That's everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? No? Okay, so you'll let councillors know how we can get involved.
Yeah.
Thank you. Grants, we've got some nice thank you letters for grants. Are we happy to note those? Yeah, okay. And then we have a second public open session. So do I have any members of the public who wish to speak? Please, Mrs. Grayson.
Thank you very much. I just want to say how pleased I am that I think it was 8 supervising the sustainable transport corridor that you have decided that we're going to have a big meet to discuss this. I was the ex-councillor who was at the workshop, and Councillor Bridger was the current councillor here. But I was very disappointed to have poorly attended the workshop. I don't know how many people got there on Saturday, whether it's going to take the same format. But to me, and to certainly to the Biggleswade Community Safety Group, it's a huge issue because it isn't just when you talk about transport, the big thing when it changes the way the traffic's going to go, on the bikes going to go somewhere else, cars going to go place. It has lots of about health and safety, and therefore, hopefully, we will be taking what we call a holistic approach, particularly with pedestrians within that. And there's all sorts of things, and making it a nice walk way through. And yes, that's one way, that's coming back another way. Compassion's there for the green belt. It's about creating a green belt and the original town plan about 10, 15 years ago, the green beltway, and trying, but ironically, lots of those things we discussed then are still very, very important today, and even more so because of more traffic than ever. So yes, delighted.
Thank you very much. Yes, as you say, there are lots of conflicts to be resolved between pedestrians, cyclists, scooter users. Yeah.
They're not limited, they're not legal, they're not private property.
Yes, that's right. Okay, it's maybe just as well because trying to take a scooter off a teenager might not be very easy.
Well, the lack of stuff last Friday evening was quite understanding, very pleasant. He wasn't rude or offensive. He just said, I didn't know that, I've only had it a fortnight. And when we told him we could possibly be fined £1,000 for using it on the public highway or on the pavement, he was absolutely horrified. And he did just pick it up and walk off with it. When he got outside and we got back on, I always have to say, well, that's not what it is. I wasn't going to be stalking anybody on the contrary.
Okay, thank you. I've got two people. Sorry, are you indicating, Mr. Reynolds? Yes, please. Come on then.
Harrison done a lot of like clean, 10 or 11 years ago, maybe it was even more. We had a £1 million update, revamped our town centre, pavements, parking. Over the years, unfortunately, we've now ended up with a black checkerboard pattern. And there's also been some work outside the Rossop restaurant, which is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, it is so poorly done. So my questions are, I'm a contractor and I want a bigger hole in the town centre. Who do I contact? Who comes along afterwards and says, yeah, that works to an acceptable standard? Because at the moment, it looks absolutely disgraceful. we're trying to attract people to come to Kempton.
I stand to be corrected, but I think it's the Highways Authority who have to deal with that. Am I right, ward councillors? Yes. So it's Central Bedfordshire Highways Department who contractors would have to contact.
Well, shouldn't we be contacting highways so that repair is not acceptable? You know, it can be done. I've called Land and Water to come and sort that. I mean, they're cowards and they'll get away with it. And until somebody stands up and says, that is not acceptable, would you like to send the contract and put it back the way?
Yes, I think you're getting agreement round the table on that. So maybe we need to look specifically at Rosso Lounge. And just the other thing I would say is that we are trying to look at the whole Market Square, because you're right, it's a checkerboard. Lumps of tar get put down instead of paving being replaced. There are lots of issues to sort out. And one of the issues is it's tree roots that do a lot of the damage.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to sort out what we can do with the trees. So lots to think about. Thank you. Now, I've got 2 indications from people online. Can we bring in Andy Skilton, please? Who's looking for this?
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Hiya, Andy Skilton from the Walking and Cycling in Biggleswade Facebook group and page. It's just regarding the sustainable transport corridors. Really, I just wanted to remind councillors that these are sustainable transport corridors and that inconvenience to the motorists and lack of parking shouldn't be the forethought in your minds when you're responding to the consultation from Central Beds Council, and that to really be serious about encouraging more people to walk and cycle, you will need to take cars out of the equations in certain spaces, and sort of some of the sustainable transport corridors could do that. So I'll just encourage councillors really to ensure that they're not sort of putting the noisy minority of people that want to drive the same way they've always driven into consideration when they're making these responses to Central Beds Council. And I did have another point. Oh, and that was it. And if the councillors really are serious about encouraging people to walk and cycle, which I'm sure you are, because there are massive public health benefits and also benefits in reducing the congestion for people that really need to use the roads, then I would urge you to sell these sort of schemes and explain to residents why they are beneficial to them, rather than just resisting the change, which sometimes it does feel that that's what's happening. Thank you.
Okay, I think we take on board what you're saying. There are just problems where people haven't got off-road parking and need to park somewhere near their houses. So there's always problems to balance on all of this, but I think we take your views on board. Thank you very much. I now have Leanne Thurlow who wishes to speak. Can we bring Leanne Thurlow in, please?
Good evening, can you hear me?
Hello, yes, go on.
Hello, my name's Leanne Thurlow, I'm a member of the public. And please, would the council be able to provide a status update, including timeframes on the proposed pigeon cull within Biggleswade? And has the town council been able to engage with the numerous organisations which have offered their advice and assistance, and most notably the Humane Wildlife Solutions? Thank you.
I think the update is that it's not been a priority at the moment. We will be looking into things in the future, and we haven't contacted the particular organisation that you've emailed us about, but we will be looking at what we can do with this situation. But thank you for raising it again. It's not the immediate priority on the agenda of the council. Thank you. I don't have anybody else indicating that they wish to speak. So that's the end of the public open session. And we now need to bring forward the motion to move into exempt session. So